Welcome back, programmers. Guillaume here, and we are back with the simple image processor, but this time this is the final episode. No more. In this episode I used the single code to make two different applications. You already know it, the window-based application, and I'm also doing a console-based application, command line, so you can resize images just from the command line without any window opening. So it's going to talk about command line, arguments, parameters, and of course compiler directives. So console-based application, simple image processor, last episode. Let's have a look. Okay, so back into the code of the simple image processor. We want to make it work as a console application. So the first thing we need to do is to change the project here, to make the project, to add a new target. Here the default target is using Windows, meaning window-based application, and I want a separate target to create the console-based application. So we are going to rename this to GUI for the graphical user interface, and I'm going to copy this and create the console. Okay, new target, console. I will set the console as default so that when I run it with F5 it will actually run the console. So what will I change? Here the executable file name will be SIP.console, SIP-console.exe. Icon, I'm not sure it's not going to use an icon. No modern theme, enable DPI, we don't need that. But we need the executable format to be console. Then here in the constant, what I need is the creator executable, create executable here, as well as for this one. You see we will need that. And that's it. My project is okay. I can try to build, see, target. Now I have two targets, GUI and console. I can build all targets. This should work fine. I have created my two targets. And what if I run, let's run the SIPC, SIP.exe, SIP-console. I could add the icon for the console as well, so the exe has an icon. Let's do that. Let's build the targets again. Boom, boom, done. And now let's have a look. SIP, look at that, SIP-console and SIP. If I run the SIP, it opens the GUI-based application. If I run the console, what will it do? Well, it opens the console and it opens the GUI as well, because we did not do any modification in the code yet. So that's for the project. Okay, project. Now we have two targets. One is the console, and by the way, if I run F5 in my PureBasic here, it will run the console based, because that's the default target. Okay, now let's do some modifications in the code. So we want to switch, we want to have the same code work with console or not console. So of course we are going to use compiler directives. And the first one is that I'm going to split the main, because here you see the main procedure. It basically creates the window and bind events, and all this is for the GUI target. So we need to extract this into a separate procedure. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to create GUI main. Okay, GUI main here is doing exactly the same as the main. So instead of that, I can write this here, GUI main. That's the first one. And then I want to be able to switch between, as I said, console and GUI. So I need a console main. So I'm going to create a console main, but okay, I'll explain that later. And then I need to switch in the main procedure. Instead of just calling the GUI main, I'm going to switch, of course, between between the GUI main and the console main, depending on some compiler directives, some constant. So here, what is it? I'm doing compiler select, so I'm checking the executable format, and the executable format is the same that we see here. It's this list. It can be Windows, console, or shared DLL, shared library. So executable format, executable means it's the GUI. It has a window. So I'm calling GUI main in that case. If it's a console, I'm calling console main. And if it's anything else, I'm saying that the executable format is not supported. I'm raising a compiler error. That's for my main. Let's have a look at the console main procedure. Main procedure for the console-based SIP. I'm opening a console and checking. So just open console, open a console window. Or if you're running it already in a CMD, in a command line, in a CMD window, it will just reuse the same console. Open console, title, then print n. So I'm printing some text with a new line, resizing. I'm calling the battery size with default values. So here I'm resizing using the compiler file path, another constant, compile time constant. Here it's the file path, meaning the path of the SIP main file. I could have used here, I could go here in my console, compile run. Here I could have used the current directory and tell that create the temporary executable in the source directory. So I could check this, and instead of using the pb compiler file path, I could use the get current directory. That should do the trick, that should do the same. Let's use it like this. So here, okay, I've printed that, I'm resizing my images, I'm printing done. So far, if you run the console without any parameters or whatever, it will resize the images that are in the current directory and the subfolders. This little piece of code here is just saying that if you run the console, if I run F5, it will automatically close the console once the application, the program is ended. And I don't want, because I want to see some of the text here. So I'm using input to wait for the keyboard input from the user, but I'm only using input if I am not creating the executable, meaning if I'm running the debugger. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So doing that, if I test this will not work because I have some more modification I need to do, because so far I'm going to call batch resize, but if we look at the batch resize procedure, we see that there are some GUI, we're calling some stuff on the gadgets here, disable gadgets, set gadget state, disable gadgets. So we also need to add the to put some compiler directives here in this procedure, and we are going to do that this way. Here I'm going to do this. Okay, here I'm going to move this under here. Then I need the compiler endif right here. Compiler endif. And I'm going to change the indentation here. Okay, let me check. Compiler endif. And I've done a little refactoring here instead of here, I'm computing the new file name from this, and I'm using the new file name right here, prefix plus this, and we replace that with new file name. Compiler and diff, new file name, okay. And here you see again, there is some GUI update. So we need to put a switch, a select here, compiler select, right here. So instead of having this, I'm going to add that. Compiler select. If I'm running executable, meaning Windows, I'm actually updating the progress bar. But in the case of the console, I don't have a progress bar, so I'm just going to print the file path, an arrow, and the new file name. So we are going to see every file in the console. We're going to see every file being processed and displayed in the console, one per line, old name, new name. And that's it. Let's have a look. I run it, F5, it's running the console. Let me move it here. Look at that, resizing. I'm resizing some images that I have in my current directory. Yes, because as you can see here, I have a subfolders. Here's my code. I have a subfolder images with the images, some images, and they have been resized to whatever size, 100 pixels wide. That's my default parameter. Where is my console? It's right here. Simple image processor, see, very nice console with the icon, and we can see the text and the done here. Perfect. Now I realized that this procedure batch resize is actually returning. It's actually returning the something, actually nothing, because there is no procedure return, but we should return the number of files that have been processed, the number of images that have been resized. So let's do that. I'm just going to add here, very easy, a procedure return of the count. Easy enough. And I can even add here a comment returns the number of images that have been resized. Oh, sorry. Okay. Period. And in the console main, here, instead of doing that, I'm just displaying done. No, I can say protected and be resized equals batch resize, and then when I'm printing this, I'm also printing, let me copy paste it, it would be faster, this, okay, number resized, images have been resized. Let's check that, run. I have to move the console every time, but done, 10 images have been resized because I've already resized the images that were previously resized. That works. Very nice. Now I want to really add some options to the command line. So far, when we run, okay, the SIP-console.exe, we run it, but we don't have any possibility to put some options ourselves, to change the parameters, and that's what we want to do. So let's add a command line, the processing of the command line, the processing of the parameters of the command line, the arguments. So to do that, I'm just going to start with two different actions, options that you can use in the command line, the -br for batch resize and -h for the help. So it will just be an action. So I need first an enumeration. I need an enumeration here. Console action, that's going to be either nothing, none, batch resize, or display help. Then I need a structure to keep all the flags that will be set in my command line, all the options. I'm going to put them into one structure called I'm not going to put it here. I'm going to put it with the other structures. SIP-console options, console underscore options. Okay. And so far, I will just have one action. Okay, the action that's going to be either batch resize, display help, or none. And now I need to read the command line. Okay, so I have this big procedure here. You'll see. Let's go back to the console main here. I'm going to put it right above. Here we are. Read command line. I'll get back to the read command line. I'm going to add another procedure here that will display the help, the usage, the name of the exe, options, what are the options, -br for the batch resize, -lh for the help, prints this help. Okay, and now I need to use the print usage and the read command line. So let's have a look at the read command line just before I go into the details here. It will return true or false depending on the validity of the command line. If the command line is invalid, it will return false. If it's valid, it will return true. And it takes a pointer to a console options, okay, the parameter name options. So it will fill up the options, so only the action so far, and return if it's valid or not. So how do we use it? Well, we use it in the console main. So I need first to keep the options, then I need to call the read command line. So instead of doing that, I'm going to do this. I detailed that, okay, and the rest. Okay, let me just change the indentation here quickly. Okay, so what do we do here? Oops. We have our options, we're opening the console, then we're reading the command line. I read the command line, I fill up the options structure, and also I'm checking if the command line was successful. If it was successful, if the command line is valid, I process it. If it's not valid, I'm printing the usage. Okay, I'm just printing the help to remind the user that how we can use the command line. If the command line is valid, I'm checking what is the action in my options. Okay, with options, meaning I'm using the option structure, and I'm selecting the action. What is the action? If it's display help, well, I'm just displaying the help. Okay, same, print usage. If it's batch resize, I'm doing the same as earlier. I'm just calling resizing. I'm resizing with default values for the parameters, and that's it. And if it's something else than display help or batch resize, meaning if it's none, then I'm reprinting the usage, because we cannot, using the console without any parameters will just print the help message, and that's it. Same thing here. Okay, so let's have a look in detail at the read command line. You'll see it's not very complicated. I'm initializing the action to be none. Then I'm calling program parameters. It returns an arg, the first argument. So program parameters get the next pass program parameter or the parameter at index. Here I'm not using any parameter here, so it will return the first one, the first argument. So the command line is made of words separated by white spaces. Every word is a parameter, an argument, and the name of the executable is not part of the parameters. So here the first one, if I type SIP-console space -br, the first argument will be -br. If I don't put any argument, the first argument will be an empty string. So here I'm looping I'm doing a while, and in my while loop I will call program parameter again to get the next parameter, okay, at every loop, and I'm stopping when the argument is empty, or I'm continuing while the argument is not empty. So depending on, so here I'm selecting the argument. What is this argument? The current one. Okay, if it's br, dash br, batch resize, I'm setting the options action to be batch resize. If it's dash h, sorry, I'm putting the action to be display help. If it's something else, I'm saying procedure return false. It's supposed to be an invalid command line. Only dash br or dash h. But here there's some code here. I don't want to have both. If the user types dash br and dash h, both of them, it should fail. It should display the help. So here the dash br will work only if the action was none. Same for the help, it will work only if the action previously was none, meaning the dash br and the dash h are not using at the same time. So if it was the case, I'm returning false, it's invalid, and only at the end I'm returning, what do I return? I return the fact that the action is not CA known. We cannot use the console with a no parameters. It's either dash br or dash h. If there is no action, then it's an error. It will return an invalid command line. And that's it. So the very interesting, the very important command here is this program parameter that returns the next argument in the command line. So here, when I'm calling a read command line, I know if it's valid or not, and then I can act. And of course, the action has been, the options has been filled in with the correct values, so we can try this. So if I run this, it will display the help. Sorry, here it will display the help because I don't have any parameters when I run in debug. How do you put parameters when you run in debug? Well, easy. You go compile run here, and you can type here your parameters. So let's try first with something that does not exist. Okay, run it. Sorry, I have to move every time. I get the help because it's an error. Same thing, if I put something that exists now, I'm going to put, well, the same, dash h. It will display the help once again. And finally, if I change the parameters to be dash br, that should batch resize the current directory. Let's try this. That works. I have resized my 15 images in my images directory. Great, that works. But we want more flags than just dash br because we want to pass here. Look at that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters that I would like to have as a options on my command line. Okay, let's do that. You'll see it's not that easy. It's not that complicated. I'm just going to change here this guy first. Why? Because look, we have all the flags that we need here. When I'm using dash br, I can use it in conjunction with dash EW for enforce width, or EH for enforce height, dash I for include subfolders, and dash D plus the path for the directory, so the path of the folder that you want to start resizing your images. So dash EW and for the width, dash EH and for the height, and I'm using default values. If you see, I've put some brackets here, so those options, those flags are optional. If I don't put them, I'm going to use the default parameters. Okay, so now let's work this. I need more options in my structure. My structure here, I only have an action. Now I need to keep all the values of the different flags. So I'm using more than that. I'm using the include subfolders, the dimension, is it the width, and the path. Okay? Now let's use them. So we need to go in the ReadCommandLine procedure here, and we are going to first initialize with the default values. So the only thing that I'm changing here is that the include subfolders by default is false, but I'm using the current directory 100 for the dimension, and I'm resizing the width by default. So that's the ReadCommandLine, and now I need to add all the cases for the new flags. I'm going to put them after the BR right here. So let's have a quick look. -d. Here I'm setting the path with the -d. Fine, but the path will be the next, okay, the next argument. So I'm directly writing this option \path equals program parameter, because program parameter is going to return the next argument of my command line. It will return whatever is after the -d, which is supposed to be the path. But I need to validate that, so I'm checking first if it's not empty, or I'm checking is it a directory. So if it's not, then I'm saying that the command line is invalid. If it's a folder and it's not empty, then I'm checking that it ends with the correct / path separator. If it's not, then I'm adding it. Okay, -ew enforce width. Well, is width, I'm forcing it to true. Yes, it's a width. I'm reading the next parameter and I'm turning it into an integer that needs to be positive, strictly positive. We don't want a 0 wide, 0 width. And then I'm setting the dimension to this val of args. Okay, else continue, that I'm not sure. Yes, it will. Yes, if the value is not correct, it will use the default value because it will go to the next argument. -eh enforce height. Is width is false, of course, and I'm doing the same. I'm reading the next parameter. If it's I'm reading the next parameter. If it's a positive, strictly positive value, then I'm setting the dimension to this value. Otherwise, I continue. I'm going to use 100 as the default. -i include subfolders. I'm setting the include subfolders to true, and the rest you already know. And that's how you read the command line. Okay, I'm just initializing all this options structure with the values that are read from the flags of the command line. And that is it. Now what do I need to do? Well, I need to use the correct values. So sorry, I need to copy that right here in the console main. See, I'm already using the options here, but here I'm using default values. I need to replace all this by the actual options /path / include subfolders, dimensions, and is width. And that is it. That is it for using all those parameters. So let's have a quick look. What I'm going to do first is delete all the already resized images in this folder, and I'm going to change with the Control Enter here the option. So I'm going to say -i. I'm going to say -enforce height to be 80 pixels, and I'm going to give the path, which is going to be .images. Same path, but here I'm repassing the path. And that's it. Okay, and if I run this, F5, look at that, resizing. Okay, 14 images have been resized. Perfect, that works. Let's have a look at the images we're talking about here. 2 new images that have been resized. What? 80 pixels high, 80 pixels high. That works. And even if I look in the subfolders here, I did not delete it, but the last one, it's this one, is really 80 pixels high. That worked perfectly. And I can quit that. What we can do is try to do the same. If I build all my targets, you see that here I have my SIP-exe, SIP-console. Let's try to run it directly. Okay, I have my command prompt and I can run SIP-console.exe. If I don't put any argument, I get an error message, and you see I'm not using the input here. So I don't have to hit a key to finish, to end the program. It ends automatically. So here I can do the same again. SIP, okay, dash H, it will display the help, and dash BR, dash, let's not put the I, so dash n4th width to be 120, and dash D being, once again, this. You see that it resizes 4 images. It resizes 4 images. Let's have a look. Images. The new images here is 120 pixels wide. Exactly, that worked perfectly. So that's how you do console-based applications with these compiler directives. The video is already very long, so I'm gonna stop here. I have some other modification I wanted to do is managing errors. So maybe what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share, put the source code of the final version with the error management in the description, the link in the description, and you'll have a look. There are some tricks that I used, not tricks, but I had to change the get images and the batch resize procedures. I had to modify them so that the get images would return not only the file path, but the file path and an error flag and an error message. And then in the batch resize, I would, instead of just displaying the file path, I would display if the file was on error or not. Something like that. Have a look at the code, you'll see. And that is it for the SIP-console. And voila, that was the last episode of the simple image processor. You can now resize images directly from the command line. Last episode, what am I gonna do next? Well, first I'm going to continue working on the snake, of course, it's not finished, and I'm going to switch to a new project. You'll see, I have no real idea right now, but maybe more a professional business looking application with access to database, access to files, maybe work with the network as well. We'll see. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. You can ask me questions in the comment section, and of course you can subscribe right here. You can check out the social media right there and the latest video right here. That being said, thank you all for watching. I will see you soon.